Fort St. Elmo is a star fort in Valletta, Malta. It stands on the seaward shore of the Cyprus Peninsula that divides Marsamxett Harbour from Grand Harbour, and commands the entrances to both harbours along with Fort Heine and Fort Ricasoli. It is best known for its role in the Great Siege of Malta of 1565. History, background and construction. By 1417, the local militia had already established a permanent watch post on the tip of the Cyprus Peninsula. In 1488, the Aragonese built a watchtower on St. Elmo Point, and it was dedicated to Erasmus of Formia, better known as St. Elmo. In 1533, the Order of St. John reinforced the tower due to its strategic location. In 1551, an Ottoman raid occurred in which the Turkish fleet sailed into Marsamxett Harbour unopposed. Due to this, it was decided that a major expansion was necessary, and in 1552 the tower was demolished and a new star fort began to be built. It was designed by 4 Italian architects and had a cavalier, a cubottone and a tenai. A ravelin was hastily constructed months before the 1565 siege. Great Siege of 1565. In 1565, the Ottomans invaded Malta once again with much more force than in 1551. In the Great Siege of Malta, Fort St. Elmo was the scene of some of the most intense fighting of this siege, and it withstood massive bombardment from Turkish cannon deployed on Mount Cyprus that overlooked the fort and from batteries on the north arm of Marsamxett Harbour, the present site of Fort Heine. The initial garrison of the fort was around 150 knights and 600 soldiers, the majority of which were Spanish, and 60 armed galley slaves. The garrison could be reinforced by boat from the forts across the Grand Harbour at Birgu and Sengli. During the bombardment of the fort, a cannon misfired and hit the top of its parapet, sending shards in all directions. Debris from the impact killed the gunner and mortally injured the corsair and Ottoman Admiral Turgut Reis, one of the most competent of the Ottoman commanders. The fort withstood the siege for 28 days, falling to the Turks on the 23rd of June 1565. None of the defending knights survived, and only 9 of the Maltese defenders survived by swimming across to Fort St. Angelo on the other side of the Grand Harbour after Fort St. Elmo fell. The long siege bought much-needed time for the preparation of the other 2 fortresses and the arrival of reinforcements from Spain, which drove the Ottomans off of Malta in a bloody massacre. Reconstruction and modifications. After the siege, Grand Master John Parasote de Valette decided to build a new city on the peninsula. Construction started in 1566, and Francesco Laparelli was sent by the Pope to design the fortifications. The ruined Fort St. Elmo was rebuilt and integrated within the city walls. The fort was modified a number of times in the 17th century. The Vendôme bastion was built in 1614, and in 1687 the Carafar enceinte was built on the foreshore surrounding the entire fort. In the late 17th century, the fort was directly linked to the Cavalier and part of the ditch was filled in, burying some of the original ramparts in the process. In the 18th century, a new pulverista was built in the Vendôme bastion, and stores were built in the area between the main fort and the Carafar enceinte. These are known as Pinto stores, and they and the surrounding area form what is known as Lower St. Elmo. On the 8th of September 1775, Fort St. Elmo was captured by 13 rebel priests along with St. James Cavalier in what became known as the Revolt of the Priests. The order's flag was lowered and a banner of St. Paul was raised instead. The order managed to recapture St. Elmo, so the rebels in control of St. James surrendered as well. Eventually the rebels were tried and 3 were executed while the others were exiled or imprisoned. The heads of the 3 executed men were displayed on the corners of St. James Cavalier, but were removed soon after. Emmanuel de Rohan Polduc was elected Grand Master in November of the same year. British rule. The fort was once again modified in the early 19th century by the British, when a musketry parapet was built. In 1855, the pulverister at Vendome Bastion was converted into an armoury, and some small arms from the palace armoury were transferred there. In the 1870s, more works were done on Abercrombie's Bastion. In 1917, the first heart operation to be performed on a soldier was done at St. Elmo. In the interwar period, gun emplacements were built to house new twin 6-pounder QF guns. The fort was the site of the first aerial bombardment of Malta on the 11th of June 1940. Among the people that were in the fort during the air raid was the military Dr. Sench Tabone, who later became president of Malta. He survived the attack, but 6 others were killed in the same air raid. On 26 July 1941, the Italians launched a seaborne attack on the Grand Harbour with 2 human torpedoes, 4 mast boats and 6 mount boats. The force was detected early on by a British radar facility, and the coastal artillery at St. Elmo opened fire when the Italians approached to close range. In the attack, 15 men were killed and 18 captured, and all the human torpedoes and mount boats, along with 2 of the mast boats, were lost. One of the mount boats hit St. Elmo Bridge, which linked the breakwater with the tip of the peninsula near the fort, and the bridge collapsed. The bridge was never restored, and it was only in 2012 that a new one was built in its place with a similar but different design. Parts of the fort were severely damaged during the war, and some scars of the bombing can still be seen to this day. The Royal Malta Artillery left the fort on 26 March 1972, ending its long military history. Parts of the fort subsequently fell in disuse. Present day. The World Monuments Fund placed the fort on its 2008 watch list of the 100 most endangered sites in the world because of its significant deterioration due to factors such as lack of maintenance and security, natural aging, and exposure to the elements. Since 2009, major restoration works began, and as of 2014 the restoration of Upper St. Elmo and the Carafara was nearly complete. Restoration work was completed in 2015. Lower St. Elmo has been cleaned from the waste that accumulated over the years, and the Grand Harbour Regeneration Corporation is making plans to begin restoration. From 1975, part of the fort housed the National War Museum, which contained military equipment and other things related to World War I and II. A replica of the George Cross that was awarded to Malta by King George VI in April 1942, was also on display in this museum. The museum closed in September 2014, and reopened in May 2015, having a larger collection. Since the mid-20th century, Fort St. Elmo has also housed Malta's police academy. Other parts of the fort are used for inguardia and alarm military reenactments. While the fort was being restored, some archaeological excavations were made and various elements of the original pre-1565 fort were uncovered. This was an important find because very little remains of the original fort exist, mainly since most of it was rebuilt by Laparelli in 1566 and it underwent a lot of renovation between the 17th and 19th centuries. In November 2015, the fort was used as a media center for the Valletta Summit on migration. Foreign journalists stated that it was possibly the most stunning venue which ever hosted an EU summit. Layout. The original Star Fort, sometimes known as Upper St. Elmo to distinguish it from the rest of the fort, consists of 2 demi-bastions, 2 flanks and 2 faces, a parade ground, barracks and a large cavalier. The fort included a ravelin in 1565, but this was demolished during the fort's reconstruction after the siege. After the fortifications of Valletta were built, Vendome Bastion was constructed in 1614, linking the French curtain to Fort St. Elmo. The bastion contains an accorgat, and it was eventually converted into a magazine, and later an armory. The bastion is now part of the National War Museum. The Caraffa which was built starting from 1687, encloses the original fort as well as Vendome bastion. It consists of the following bastions and curtain walls. St. Gregory Bastion, an asymmetrical bastion with a long left face. It was altered by the British to house QF 6-pounder 10 cwt guns. St. Gregory Curtain, a curtain wall linking Street Gregory and Conception bastions. It contains various British gun emplacements. Conception Bastion, also known as Balls Bastion, a small pentagonal bastion, containing a number of gun emplacements, magazines, and gun crew accommodation. Sir Alexander Ball was buried in the salient of the bastion. Scholastica Curtain, curtain wall linking Conception and St. John bastions. It contains a gun emplacement for a RML 12.5-inch 38-ton gun, as well as other British modifications. St. John Bastion, also known as Abercrombie's Bastion, a large asymmetrical bastion at St. Elmo Point, the tip of the Cyberus Peninsula. The bastion contains several British gun emplacements and magazines. St. Abaldacre Curtain, also known as Abercrombie's Curtain, a long curtain wall linking Street John and St. Lazarus bastions. It contains a number of British gun emplacements. Some barrack blocks are located in the area between Upper St. Elmo and the Caraffa. In popular culture, Lower St. Elmo was used as a film location for the Turkish jail in the 1978 film Midnight Express. The fort is mentioned in the 1980 thriller novel Man on Fire by A. J. Quinnell. The main character Creasy trained with the AFM inside the fort. Fort St. Elmo was featured on Maltese stamps in 1980 and 2003, and on a UNESCO stamp in 1981. Popular Maltese folk band Etnica gave 3 concerts, on the 31st of July, 1 and the 2nd of August 2003, named Bum Bum, that drew thousands of revelers to listen to modern Maltese folk music. In the popular real-time strategy game released in 2005, Age of Empires 3, the first level's task is defend a fort on Malta against the Ottomans, which appears to be Fort St. Elmo. The first part of the music video of the 2008 song Vodka by the Gozitan singer Morena was filmed at Lower St. Elmo. The fort is also mentioned in the 2014 Omniverse novel Cauldron of Ghosts by David Weber and Eric Flint, as part of a list of last stands throughout history. The fort also plays a key role in the novel Sword and Scimitar by Simon Scarrow.